you?
I'm okay. Are you okay?
Yeah, I had like the craziest night day because it was raining out, and usually I take my kid on like long walks because what else is there to do? And then today it was just like raining.
Yeah.
He was indoors, and I was like, "We're gonna watch some Sesame Street," and then Sesame Street was not bringing it today, and I was like, "Elmo, I need you." I really needed Elmo to pull through, and it was just nothing was gonna get this kid's attention other than like chewing on my phone.
Well, that actually feeds into something that I want to hear more about, because I've watched some of Stand Up Mom, which is great to see that you're doing that. And if we compare that to, say, your slot on Gotham Live, the Access TV comedy, uh, that was like 5-6 years ago that you taped that?
I think 6 years ago, and my hair was so short.
Well, of course, you look dashing as always, but
I look so different. My hair is long.
Taylor and Taylor both agree. So,
yes.
So what you're talking about in that period of your life is basically, you're single, you're trying to figure out, are you ever going to be married, or are you going to be in a long-term relationship? What's life going to be like? And then you fast forward 5-6 years, and here you are with a podcast where you're talking to a lot of other comics about being a mom and what that is like. So looking back just 5-6 years ago, do you love your material from then? Do you cringe, or is it both?
Oh, some of it I cringe. There's this one joke that I had that I was trying out at the Laugh Factory once, and that's like the viral clip that became so popular and everywhere, and I hate it. So that one I really cringe. But I think the Gotham one that you're talking about, there's like a art joke about like being an artist and my mom and YouTube comments, and I'm like, oh, I love that bit, and I love those, like a lot of those jokes. I love them, and I think that it's fun, and I think that they're unique jokes.
I totally like that routine, that it's about how, did Warhol seek his mom's approval? Did Jackson Pollock seek his mom's approval? Because the stereotypical Jewish upbringing, I'm sure there was disappointment when you first went into performing, but then once you've been on TV enough times and they see the money that you potentially make from a good gig, they're jealous of kind of what you were able to do.
I have the weirdest story. It didn't start like that because I'm just someone who, my father did comedy in like the 80s and 90s, and he wasn't very good at it, but he tried, and he became a lawyer instead, and he had 3 daughters, and I was the third, and I was trying to always break the tension of like all of the craziness of the house. And I just started making jokes. My dad really pushed me to do stand up, and just kept like drilling it into me that this is what I should do with my life. And then I basically, like, anyone gets pressured by their dad to do what they wanted them to do. Like if your dad's like, I want you to be a lawyer, like, or if I want you to be this or that, it's like we all get so much pressure from our parents. And weirdly enough, we're always trying to please our dads. And like the weirdest thing is when people are like, oh, are your parents upset you're a comedian? My joke is like, no, my sister's a lesbian, so they don't care what I do. But
yeah,
they're really proud and they're really into it. I have freaky, weird parents. My parents are like supportive as if I was like saving the world. They're like, really good set, Esther. And I'm like, okay, this is just too much support.
Well, I find that comedians, say under the age of 40, are just totally different than everyone from before. Comedians are well adjusted these days. I mean, they're neurotic, but it's so much less neuroses going on than, say, Richard Lewis and that whole era of comedy.
Sure. I mean, there's all kinds of spectrums happening, but I would like to think that I'm somewhat well adjusted. I just love getting on stage and telling jokes. I don't know where mental illness fits in, like, oh, you're gonna make someone laugh, like you better have a real sick in the head. But I hope it's not too bad. I definitely have some, self-diagnosed uh
Sure.
need for attention, things like that, approval, feeling outsider, feeling like an other.
Imposter syndrome. I mean, no matter your profession, imposter syndrome can set in.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
Well,
Um,
your husband also a comic,
Also a comedian.
working comic, two comic household. Now, this is something that I'm very curious about. Moshe Kasher and his wife have toured together, and they seem to have made it work in an awesome way where they make money, they don't have to miss each other on the road. Is the eventual goal for you and Noah to be touring together?
Well, we go on the road together, and one of us is always headlining. Like, I'll open for him or he opens for me, and that's okay. But it probably would be like a big goal to do like co-headlining, doing theaters, doing really cool clubs and theaters, and going to the fun cities. Like there's like hellish cities and hell gigs that
Yeah.
I've always been like down to do, especially like in my 20s. And I was just like, let's go to Tallahassee, let's do it. And now I'm like, San Francisco, Portland, let's go down the cool list. Chicago, I want to do. I guess the dream would be like cool cities and theaters and stuff.
I hear Denver is the city for comics. Like
Um,
Denver is an absolutely fun city for comics where there's alternative rooms that you're still going to bring 700 people to.
Yeah, I was married in Denver. My husband's from Denver, so we're always in Denver. And yeah, it's really cool. I mean, right now, nothing's going on. So I'm like, yeah, sure. In theory, Denver's a great place to do comedy. But right now, it's just like my in laws telling me I can't have chametz. So it's like really intense. I'm like, one day. But we were in Fort Collins, and he just recorded his album there. So all these, yeah, there's a bunch of fantastic places in America to do comedy. I want to tour for sure, and have co-headlining. But I don't want to get stuck like being someone's feature act, because that's just touring with him. If he's the headliner, puts me in a position where I'm like getting demoted for no reason. Now you go from, yeah, like executive to assistant just because you want to work with the person that you love. Like, no, I'll work with someone I hate. Just make me
Co-headliner or headliner.
Yeah, make me the headliner. I'll work with horrible people.
Yeah. Well, your line of work is, I've seen more adaptations and variations to meet the needs of COVID in comedy. Let me rephrase that. If
I
you're
think
like an actor, there's just like one way you act, pretty much. But for comics, I remember early on Sinbad was doing, which were basically like, I'm going to do live comedy. And then it's like everybody joined a Zoom group chat room, and then it's one-on-one weird interactions. And then other people do, well, you did something very unique with Burning Bush that I think is wonderful. But you talk to 10 comics, they've done 10 different things during the pandemic. So where did the Burning Bush live concept in front of that start? Is that you had it, that Comedy Dynamics had it?
It was like all set in place. This is just so funny how life works out. I'm 8 months pregnant. I'm getting ready to do my special, which is Comedy Dynamics and Tribeca together, where Tribeca was having the festival. They were going to do film comedy specials, and it was going to be this awesome, really exciting thing that's happening in New York City in April, last April. And then COVID hit, and I was like, I took it pretty well. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna have a special. That's it. I'm not gonna have my special. And I wrote all these jokes, and they're just gonna go to waste. And I'm like, well, I am 8 months pregnant, so I have other things to focus on.
Yeah.
And so I just ignored it. They emailed me, and they were like, we can't do it. I'm like, okay, yeah, of course. And then they came back and said, we're gonna do it in LA. And this was supposed to be this like, I'm going to be pregnant, and like the way they scheduled it, I was not going to be pregnant. So I'm like, any other person having to do a special is like, okay, here are my jokes. I'm ready. Let's go. And then they're like, oh, actually, it's going to be like 2-3 months later because of the global pandemic. No big deal. Then they would say, okay, I'll take my jokes and I'll do it 3 months later.
Yeah.
But I had to change my material entirely because it was all these jokes about being pregnant, and then I had the baby, and then I also had jokes to go along with delivering a child and everything that goes on with it. And then that became a different show, and I was really nervous about the cars because I'm like, how am I going to hear people laugh? Because
Yeah.
it's literally, I play the instrument that is the audience laughter.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to hear it. You just like, it's so important. I can't tell jokes to a wall or a parking lot, but what they did, they were so smart. They hooked up a bunch of microphones into like 30 different cars, and they would project that noise onto the stage so I could actually hear people laughing.
Inventive. I don't have the brain to be that kind of
Yeah.
creativity force.
These are,
So,
these are audio engineers that are probably so smart and totally underutilized. So if you're really creative and you're an audio engineer, like, okay, guess what? What are you going to do? It's like, yeah, I'll put microphones in the audience. I think that they probably are bored of their job, and this was like the ultimate thing.
yeah.
Like, get creative. Like, I went up to the audio guys and I was like, you guys rocked it. It changed everything.
Yeah, it looks natural when you watch it as just a fan checking on a comedy special. It's not weird. I think that
There are some cutaways to dogs, and I think a couple cutaways of people like taking bong rips, but other than that,
well, I mean, if let's say you're a comedy diehard, did you see Chelsea Peretti's special where it just kept cutting away to just
yes,
dogs?
it was cutting away to all these funny things, and I said to myself, wow, how funny. She's using the cutaways as a joke, and like the way she did it, I just like ate it up. I'm like, oh my god, she's so funny. I love her. And then when I first saw the first cut and they did a cutaway to a couple dogs, I was like, yes. And I was like, and it's natural, which is so weird. I was like, my comedy is for dogs. Yes.
Well, going back to material, because you brought that up about how you had to change material due to the scheduling being changed and all that. Some comics that I speak with say, I did the material on a special, so now I bury this material and I never do it again. And then others go, well, now I'm going to tour that material for a year and a half.
Oh no.
So is it
I
kind of a
really,
burial for you?
it is 100% bury it, unless there's like a maybe like a buffer. I'm giving myself a little bit of like a buffer because usually it's like you're done, and I'm like, and I am done. I'm not going to touch those jokes ever again. However, I have a couple of headlining gigs or colleges coming up, and I usually go out and work on my jokes, and now the stage time is very complicated and very limited.
Yeah.
Although I'm doing some Zoom shows and some a couple of live shows, but it's been harder than ever to come up with brand new material. But we've got some jokes. I've got like some new stuff. So yeah, I'm a big fan of never telling those jokes again.
Cool. With all that said, because it's not like you've just been in comedy for 2 years, you've been around for a while. Do you have it at this point that if you did 2 shows in a night, you could go without repeating any material or so much like, this is my college set and then this is my club set? Are you at that point?
Absolutely. There's definitely a college set, and just when I try to talk to college kids about getting an emergency C-section, it's like it's just not where they're at. And I
Yeah.
try to put myself as I was once a college student. I have very vivid memories of what I was interested in and what I thought was funny. And so I try to make sure that I'm not overwhelming them with childbirth. And that was like such a thing on my mind. And now I'm in a different phase, which is like trying to juggle it and really, I don't know. I mean, I'd prefer to just stay very present with what's happening. I mean, that's why I don't like doing colleges, because I feel like 105 years old. I'm like, hello, I'm a baby. I'm older than you. And I really think they look at me like I'm 100.
If you're 23, you're old at a college. It's just the reality.
Yes. And then
Yeah.
I'm in college being like, wow, look at you guys. You gotta, and then no matter what, I just sound like so corny trying to connect. And then
Eh,
I do like masturbation joke, and it's like eruption of laughter because that's what they're doing all day. And I do crowd work. I'm like, what's your major and what's going on with you? And and then we get to some funny things. So colleges are, I also feel bad because their college is spending so much money on this like
yes.
entertainment. And I like take it like I really want to give them a good show. I really don't want to just phone it in. I want to leave an impression on these children.
I I I don't think you need the encouragement from me, but I'm sure you're just fine with all that. And I'm sure that also the show Crashing helped open up a lot of people's eyes as to what it's like to be a comic playing colleges when maybe that's not your lifestyle.
Hopefully the college kids watch that, but I'm not sure. And they'd probably feel like, oh, that's not me.
Well, we were talking before about Stand Up Mom, and it's a very personal side of you. It's very little to do with what you're talking about on stage. Maybe a topic or two might be the same, but of course, you're not like playing for laughs immediately. You're just kind of being yourself. I see Stand Up Mom as maybe you're going to be an author, maybe you're going to be giving advice at a certain point. Is that a career path that you're also looking towards?
For sure. I definitely have a couple pieces of advice. I like that after having a baby, I all of a sudden felt, I think after having a wedding, I was like, listen, girlies, I've got advice now. I've been through something in my life that's worth teaching you about. And definitely would love to give advice. People, like smart people and cool people, are like reaching out to me and being like, what do you think of this? And I'm like, you want my opinion on what to get? Like, it's so flattering, but I'm like, I can't believe people are asking me what stroller to get. I was like, I still feel like an idiot. But I could talk about strollers for 2 hours. It's disgusting. I think I just dived really hard into motherhood because I found it to be a source of like love and creativity and another life. It's like, how can you not get completely sucked in? So yes. And then a book, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I have some weird, crazy stories about me growing up in Tampa. And then I have some like mom stories, but I don't think it would be like a mom book. I think it would be like Esther's memoir, tell all. Watch out, fellas.
You did talk a bit about Tampa in that appearance that we talked about on Access TV that Gotham Comedy Club said. And just out of curiosity, how does a Jewish family wind up in Tampa?
Hilarious story. One side of the family, it was a baseball scholarship, just a kid in Freehold, New Jersey, who got a baseball scholarship to come to University of Tampa, so baseball. And the other side, my grandmother's family was driving from Chicago to Miami, and the car broke down in Tampa. And I guess it was one of those days where they're like, let's live here. And so that's how it happened. And my mom's from Israel, so I don't even know how she ended up there. Wow. I mean, I think they wanted to be by the ocean, and it's the ocean, the beaches in Tampa, I'll call it Tampa Bay because it's Tampa and St. Pete. Sure. But I've not been to a better beach. I've been to a handful of beaches, and I will still say that it's the best beach. Yeah. Many reasons why. The Gulf is warm.
Yeah.
The sand is like beautiful, like powdery beautiful. You're like, where's this sand from? it's not packed with hotels, but yet there's some hotels. It's not packed with people, but there's people. And it's also like great weather year round. And the water's, again, like jacuzzi warm during the summer. So I'm like, I get why people retire there.
Yeah, I was about a year and a half before COVID. I was flown out as a travel writer to Clearwater, and I
Yeah.
went there for 3, 4 nights. And you go, this is the best beach I've ever been on, and I live in a beach town. Yeah, you agree with that? Clearwater Beach.
Clearwater, St. Pete, and Tampa are kind of known as Tampa Bay, but Clearwater, yes. And it's just happening enough, but not too happening. I really, there's a couple of cute restaurants, but Miami is its own, I feel like it's its own country. And every time I say I'm from Tampa, everyone's like, oh, I love Miami. I'm like, I'm really not from Miami. It's like not it. It's not where I'm from. I don't think anyone does that with any other city.
Well, Tampa, it's infamous for strippers,
Yes.
professional wrestlers, and baseball recruits. So now I know that's how the family, the Steinbergs, wound up down there. So
Yeah,
your
my
dad
dad was
doing
into wrestling too. So it was like he was really into he was like trying to be an announcer, a wrestling announcer.
what?
And
So your dad was doing stand up in Tampa, that area?
yeah, and he owned a comedy club in Tampa, right next to a strip club. And then he had 3 daughters. My mom was like, "Yeah, cut this out now."
Wow. Okay, you really do have a memoir in you, I think.
Yeah, I think so. But I don't even know. I was just watching Hysterical, this documentary about female comedy, and it was so good. And I'm like, so much of the comedy and humor comes from like pain and rejection,
Sure.
and I definitely relate to it, but I just can't believe how supportive that of a family I come from. It's almost gross. Like my son, the amount of support I'm gonna have for like whatever he decides to do is just gonna be so gross. Like, you're an alligator wrestler. Your parents must be upset. Sending and I'll be like, I support your authentic truth. I am that mushy gushy. And
And that's Moses we're talking about?
yeah, Moses, he's too big for words. He's just like, I call him like my gorilla. Like I really feel like I have a gorilla in the house. He's huge.
Okay.
33 pounds.
33 pounds. Okay.
Not even a year old. He's 10 months.
You're doing something right there. I don't know what
Try
it is.
just for fun. Grab a dumbbell of 30 pounds and like sit with it, stand up with it, and brush your teeth with it.
Wow. Well, we got time for 3 more quick questions,
Okay.
and they're about you.
Okay.
Okay. The first one is, what's your favorite TV show at the moment for somebody who's going, I need a new show to start watching?
I mean, it's $1 million listing away because I'm looking at houses and I'm like, in order to really equip me for this, I need to watch TV. I'm also watching Schitt's Creek like everyone else. Wait, there's what other show? Oh, Stissel. I watch Stissel. It's on Netflix. Did you watch it?
I've never heard of Stitzel.
Oh my goodness. Okay. It's called Stissel, and it's this Israeli family. They're in Israel. It's all in Hebrew, and they are super Orthodox, live in Jerusalem. Sounds boring, but and they're all actors, but the way that they wrote this script, every second is like a dramatic turn, and it just sucks you in. And I'm just like, I consumed it. I watched the 3rd season, just came out, and I watched it with my husband in like 2 days. We finished it because it was so good. Like you're like, what happens next? I felt like such like such a fangirl for Stissel.
It was not on my radar, and your recommendation, it's going to go on
It's not funny, but it has so much Israeli like texture that's kind of funny to me, the way that they deal with each other. They're just like, yeah, okay. It's really good.
Cool. Next question. I have no idea about this. What's your favorite band, if you have a favorite band?
I mean, right now I have to say like Haim because they're cool Jewish sisters, and it's illegal for me not to support them. But
Yeah.
I really like Drake. And he's not a band. Growing up, I was obsessed with this one band, Say Anything.
Oh yeah, Max Bemis. Yeah.
Yes, I was obsessed with Max Bemis. I also really like Matisse Yahoo. Clearly, there's a theme. You know, that kind of stuff. And Justin Bieber. He's not a band. But
Maybe I should not have said band. Maybe I should have said musical artist, and that would have gotten a better response.
Band is okay. I'm also, yeah, and I love music. I can't. That's like my bucket list is not. I wouldn't say bucket list. It's what I really want to do. Like as soon as I'm really out of COVID, I want to spend time at live music, live art, live theater. That's what I want to do. Now that I'm out of jail.
I figured the old Chappelle routine about how all musicians want to be comics and all comics want to be musicians. There's usually that synergy, for lack of a better term, there. So you find that most comics are huge into music, but it's not in their material at all.
Yeah, I think, I mentioned Britney a little bit, a couple of times. My album, Hebrew School Dropout, I dressed up as Britney Spears. She was a big influence. But yeah, I don't know if I've professed my love for Drake on stage yet.
Keeping with the Judaism ties there.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah. Well, my closing question to you, and this can be as self-promotional as you want.
Okay.
Or not. And that's any last words for the kids?
For the kids. Eat your vegetables, but this will be a good time. My original very first debut album, Hebrew School Dropouts, available on Spotify, and then my brand new special, Burning Bush, is out on Amazon, Google Play, Apple TV, and it's something I'm so proud of. Filmed it when I was 6 weeks postpartum, still breastfeeding. I was probably the only person to like film a 1 hour special with lactating breasts. So that's my first. I got to be the first, potentially. I mean, I'm probably not actually. I think Bonnie McFarlane did it before me, but whatever. And then my podcast is Stand Up Mom, and I put it all out there on the podcast. So
you do. We
I'm
do know that Lane is your oldest friend. You definitely put it all out there.
She is, and she's got the highest rating. No, more people have downloaded her episode than anyone else's, and I think it's so funny because she's the only one who's not a comedian. She's a model, and so I guess people are interested in, or maybe they're super into preeclampsia. I mean, the language in my mouth when it comes to pregnancy and birthing and this, I feel like I could teach like 12 different birthing classes. So maybe that's for my next career.
Paltrocast.